debated in your classes in the past few days? Maybe. Could you say that a bit louder, please? Yeah, trying to stop funding North Korea's nuclear program. Okay, excellent. Other things? So we have should invade Syria. We have that we should place sanctions on the Philippines. That we should place sanctions on Iraq. That we should place sanctions on North Korea. Lift sanctions on Russia. That we should fund rebels in Syria. We should fund rebels in the Maghreb region. Definitely. But there's also that we should support the AIIB, the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, that we should oppose the World Trade Organization, that we should combat climate change, or the US should combat climate change. There's all of these motions are all international relations. What are the defining features of international relations motions? Number one, they always involve more than one country. I think that's important, because there are people who say a motion like this House believes that Israel should change its democracy, its democratic system. They think that's IR. That's because it's about a different country that they're from. That's not IR, that's a motion about Israeli politics, not IR. I can't help you with that one in this lecture. That's too broad. However, there are beyond the fact that there are two different countries, there are a couple of other elements they also talk about. They are either about trade, development economics, war, diplomacy, or environmental protection. Those are the 5 topics that almost all IR motions tend to be about. And within them, there are a few key concepts, and we're going to explore these key concepts today. And again, I'm not going to use any knowledge. I'm going to give you examples sometimes, because it's helpful to illustrate. I'm not going to use any knowledge based on this video. Okay. How does the world system work? First, let's say how do states work? From a very basic level, why we have them in the first place. Imagine there's no state. And I'm here. I'm a citizen. And there's no state. I can do whatever the hell I want. There's a law in many states against walking around naked on the street, but there's no state. I can walk around naked on the street. That's fine. There's a law that says I can't take things that aren't mine. But I don't know what is mine and is mine, because there's no state that tells me I take whatever I want. Aha! And now, I now almost had a computer screen. No, there's someone else in the state. I've used you in the class for this example, so I'm not going to do it again. Who else? You're also in the state. And you say, I also want this screen. You also strike it. Now we have a problem. Both of us want the same thing. How are we going to resolve this? No one to settle this dispute, so we're going to talk. And we find out, we both still want it. Then I say, I want it. Harder. And then it works. You start saying harder too. Okay? That's fine. That's fine. Let's fight for the left part. The problem is that when you have unlimited rights, you can start getting into conflict with each other. And that might mean that you need to have someone to solve this for you. So what do we do with individual people? We put states above them. We say, hold on, you're not allowed to fight, there's only one actor that's allowed to fight, that's the state. They're allowed to fight. And they mostly fight to stop you from fighting. That's the only way in which it's legitimate. So if we fight about the laptop, the state comes in and says, hold on, don't fight. Number one, if you start fighting, we're going to jail you. Number two, we're going to find out who this laptop belongs to. Turns out it belongs to you. I have to get back. I can say I don't want to give it up, but then they lock me into jail, because then I'm going to start fighting again. So in that way we create peace. We create a state above us that enables that there is peace. In other words, we've limited our rights, i.e. I no longer have right to that laptop. I've given up that right in exchange for security, in exchange for stability. That's how it works on a state level. But then, think of states as the new people. Aha, there's a new oil reserve found in the sea. In the sea in the Middle East. And Israel looks at the oil field, and Lebanon looks at the oil field. They go, who gets to own this oil? Israel says it's mine. Lebanon says it's mine. Remember, we're going to talk about it. They might disagree, they want the oil field. Next thing they could do is start fighting. Fighting, when states fight, go war. How does the international sphere solve this dilemma? Anyone have an answer? Who do we put above? Anyone have an answer? How do we stop them from going into war? The UN. That's indeed one example. Yeah, the UN. There are a couple of theories about how in international relations we make sure that countries don't start blowing each other up. The first theory is called realism. The theory of realism says we do this by creating a balance of power. So Israel and Lebanon notice each other, notice that they will both want the oil fields, so they start building an army. And they start trying to build an army that's equally powerful. So that, you know, as soon as, or more powerful than the other even, so as soon as the other one tries to get the oil field, they know they're going to get defeated or going to get heavily injured. Right. A little bit like the individuals going to the gym. So Israel and Lebanon go to the gym, there's a rocky montage going on. So they're stronger, more pumped up muscles, they become like Dwayne Johnson, both of them, they keep staring at each other. As it turns out, one of them doesn't train hard enough, can't train hard enough. They're not as strong. What do they then do? One of them is Dwayne Johnson, the other one looks like me. The one that looks like me, goes like, I can't beat this guy. What they then do is they go to a friend. They say, well, look, Israel's like going to beat me. I'm very afraid Israel's going to beat me. I need some backup. I need a gang. I need a posse. So they start allying themselves. Lebanon moves to Iran. Says Iran. Iran looks a little bit like Jackie Chan in this example. He's pretty solid. And so Iran, can you help me, man? Israel, Luke is saying, I need a friend. And Iran says, sure. Yeah, we can become allies. Of course you can listen to me now, because I'm stronger, and I can start beating you up. So listen. But you know, if you're allied with me, that's fine. If you listen a little bit, if you give a little bit in of your own sovereignty, if you follow me, if you follow my decisions, if you help me, scratch my back, I scratch yours, we're going to start. So this balance of power idea builds itself into alliances. On the biggest scale, we have, of course, the biggest power, the strongest man in the world. The guy who plays the mountain in Game of Thrones, strongest man in the world, the United States. Militarily, still the strongest power in the world. Spends a large amount of money in the military. So in the balance of power game, the US is very strong. Which means, for instance, if you're having beef with like a local actor, hello, come on in. Yeah, if you have a beef with a local actor, for instance, you are fighting with Russia, if you're, say, Poland. You might want to go to the United States and build an alliance. Now, the alliance isn't solely built on power. It also built, for instance, on how much of a threat can your ally be. Because imagine, I can fight, as Poland, I can go to the United States and I'm like, yeah, please try and, you know, help me. But the United States could also beat Poland whenever they want. So the danger there is how do I keep them from fighting? Which means that, for instance, you never become an ally with a bigger power that's near that's your neighbor. Because they have every possibility to attack you. Preferably, it's like a bit of a safeguard in between, say in other countries. Which is why Poland would prefer maybe the United States over Russia. There's one danger as well, of course. You do want, of course, to be invested. And like, America's all the way over here. Poland's all the way over there. And America's like, yeah, sure, but we don't have any friendship, right? There's no connection. You're just using me as an ally. And what's the reason why I want to do that? So either you can give something up, so that means, for instance, you say reciprocity, you scratch my back, I scratch yours, or you start building more alliances. Because Poland might be very far away, and not that important to the US, but if Poland allies with Germany, France, UK, all bind themselves together, then they become very interesting to the US, because the US thinks, well, that's a large amount of large countries. A, they might protect me very well as well. B, I might want to do other things with it, like trade, because there's now a large amount of things they can trade with. I might want to ally themselves with you, and therefore also Poland. And that's how alliances lead to formal alliances. NATO, for instance, all bound together. That's the idea of realism. These balance of powers get to keep in check. One of the dangers, well, the balance of power needs to be very fine-tuned. If one of them starts getting very bigger, start getting more of a threat, you feel endangered. Second thing is that you therefore want to increase your balance of power. So the other one starts getting bigger, for instance, not necessarily by building up the military, but by, for instance, annexing more countries. You get afraid that you think, oh, here, I might want to have a country too. I might want to have that country too. So you start proxy wars. Vietnam, for instance, Korea. Proxy wars between the two big players trying to build a balance of power, Soviet Union and the United States. That's a bit of a danger. The other idea in how to create world order is called liberalism. Liberalism says, well, balance of power is an interesting idea, but maybe what we actually want is to make sure that everyone loses something when they go to war. So we want to build cooperation. That's the first idea of liberalism. We want to cooperate. For instance, we want to cooperate economically. We want to build free trade. Free trade is great. Because Israel and Lebanon, they look at each other, and they still wanted oil fields. But now they realize something. Israel makes tahina, and Lebanon makes chickpeas. And the tahina and chickpeas combine together to make the most wonderful dish in the world, hummus. So they're going to have to give up their hummus. More specifically, they're going to have to stop giving up the trade. The chickpea trade is going to make a large amount of money for Lebanon. The tahina trade is making a large amount of money for Israel. And if they go to war, you can't really trade when you go to war, right? Borders need to be closed. The shipment of tahini might turn out to be a shipment of weapons. So you're not going to get tahini into your country when you're into war with them. You don't trade with countries you go to war with. So you have to give up on hummus. And that's the first theory. If you make sure you become interdependent upon each other, you need both countries to make hummus, that's the moment that these countries start saying, well, let's not go to war. The second idea is that we create mutual understanding amongst each other. So we start talking to each other, start thinking what we want. Remember, the balance of power is very fragile. The only way we should try and build each other up or down is by the idea, yeah, I'm bigger than you, I'm stronger than you, so you don't dare attack me. But you can't really be certain. The other guy might be stupid. He might overplay their hand. Look at North Korea. North Korea is not as big as the United States. They've been very cocky. They might overplay their hand at one point. They might actually attack. They were still quite scared. We start talking, start having understanding, start having diplomacy together. But also maybe, and this moves from liberalism into what's called constructivism, start building the same norms, have the same ideas, we're all democracies, we all understand each other, we all care about human rights values. That's the moment where you know you might not want to fight. However, that's based on a large amount of trust. You need to trust each other. And when someone does something differently, wrong, that trust is broken. And you might still be suspicious of them. Yeah, you're good friends, you talk about Game of Thrones a lot. You see him eyeing the oil fields in the background. You know he might one day go for it. And then you see him moving slower to the oil field. And the trust is broken, because you're afraid, no, he's actually trying to get to the oil field. It's a little bit like being friends with your other best friend, if both of you like the same boy or the same girl, and you've made a pact together that we're not going to go for the girl, but you see him talking after school a lot with her. They don't fully trust her. That's how states feel. States are jealous. States are envious. That's the other idea. How can we use these ideas to make arguments? Again, like the sanctions. So there is a tendency to think you have to like load a large amount of things before make arguments. For instance, consider the motion, this House believes that ASEAN should place sanctions on Duterte's Philippines. 3 proper nouns in there. ASEAN, Duterte's Philippines. The only thing you need to know is that ASEAN is a collection of Asian states. Duterte is probably the leader of Philippines because Duterte's Philippines, the possessive is the Philippines is owned by Duterte in some way, and the Philippines are a country. It's the only thing you need to know for this. Place sanctions on Philippines. Okay. What do you need to know to start making an argument? When do we do sanctions? Anyone? When do we do sanctions? Yeah.
When there's an economic dependence on your country.
Yeah.
Other countries.
Yeah, that's one of them. Yeah. This mostly like the when is it effective to use sanctions? That's the answer you answer. You're answering my second question. When do we do sanctions? When there's a reason to do sanctions, right? Yeah. Go.
Oh no, you already answered.
Yeah, when there's a reason to do sanctions. When are the reasons to do sanctions? I think I can think of 2 abstract explanations. Number 1, the country's doing something bad. Maybe human rights violations, for instance. The country's doing something bad. The second one, the country is doing something bad to us specifically. So that's the first step. Second step is economic sanctions. Why are they effective? You already have the answer. There's dependency on each other. So you can say, so what are sanctions, first of all? I mean, you can think of them economic, political. Usually, we talk about economic sanctions. Political sanctions are basically you pull away your ambassador, and it's sort of like a signal, like we're displeased with you. But you know, I mean, you don't have an ambassador. Sure, shucks. That means the ambassador won't spend his $80,000 salary in your country, I guess. He doesn't host fun dinners anymore, but what does it actually do, right? It's science please, it doesn't actually change things. Economic sanctions might change things, because, you know, you now are hurting. Your economy is hurting. You don't get trade anymore. You don't get your hummus. They might get hurt. They might be incentivized to change. Cool. That's the first step. We still know 0 things about the Philippines. We still have 0 ideas of what the bad things is happen in the Philippines. But we've claimed there are, presumably, right? Presumably there must be bad things, because otherwise the CA team didn't set this motion, right? If the CA team sets motions like this House will place sanctions on Belgium, you must assume there's something wrong with Belgium. Or the CA team is crazy. If the CA team is crazy, even knowing that the CA team is crazy, i.e. the CA has made an error, there's nothing wrong with Belgium, doesn't help you. It just makes you understand that your error will be shit. But it won't help you make actual arguments. You just know the CA team is crazy. So let's assume the CA team is not crazy. There's actually arguments to be made about why the Philippines are bad. Don't make the arguments, assume it. Assume it. Assume necessarily that the Philippines have something bad. This bad thing needs to be stopped. Sanctions can be effective in stopping it. Why can sanctions be effective? Well, sanctions hurt the economy. That's not too much of a logical gap, right? Same thing with war. I have a case written, an OG case written, for invading a country. It goes as follows. Ladies and gentlemen, the war is bad in this country. What we need to do is to intervene, to stop the war, because the war is bad. The reason why we are allowed to intervene is because we need to stop bad things. Some people might say they are allowed to solve their own issues due to sovereignty, but I think that's less important than stopping the killing of people, because I really like not killing people. Human life is important. How are we going to intervene? We're going to use Actor Y. Actor Y is usually the United States, UN, backing, etc. Actor Y is powerful, very powerful, economically very powerful. Actor Y will therefore be able to successfully fight against the military of the people in the state who are fighting. But of course, wars are complex, multiple actors. So what we are going to do is we're going to fund the actor that agrees most with us. Because we think that that actor is an actor which is good, because we are good. Therefore, we're going to fund this actor to help have us help us in the fight. How are we going to fight them? Well, we're firstly going to use a shock and awe tactic where we're going to destroy the immediately critical piece of military infrastructure, i.e. bases. Not things that civilians need to use later on like bridges, bases. But they can no longer use the key amount. We're going to stop their satellites from working, we're going to stop their rocket launching, and then we're going to launch a no-fly zone. They can't fly over anymore, which means that they don't get their planes to use, they don't get their reconnaissance, etc. We're then going to make sure that we fund enough people to take over the most important cities. Cities are very hard to fight in, but we have our local friends who are close to us. We're going to fight them. Which means quite likely, of course, that they will retreat maybe to mountain ranges. So we're going to isolate the mountain ranges. We're going to make sure that they starve to there. At that moment, this actor is severely weakened, and because we have military might, we've weakened this actor. Which means they have no other choice than to surrender. Which is when we're going to offer amnesties. We're going to say we're not going to prosecute you if you surrender now. Give them a good incentive to surrender, because they have no other option left. Of course, this country has a large problem because war is bad. So we need to fund economically this country. So we're going to do that, and we're going to make sure that the new actor, which we support, because the actor is good, is going to get large amounts of money from us. We can do that because we're opening government, and we have a gazillion amounts of money. It's unbelievable how much money opening government has. Magic money. The magic money is going to fund the country together with the good actor, together with our understanding, because we have rebuilt nations ZAB before. And therefore we're going to be successful in rebuilding this country. Okay. The trick here is name country X, name actor Y, name the ally Z, and name maybe any of the other examples. Have a CIA World Factbook so you can name a mountain range in a couple of cities, and you've now had a pretty okay opening government case. No knowledge required, because IR debating is formulaic. They're about the same thing. Just like every debate. So here we go here we're going to go and do the deductive reasoning I promised. Now I'll give you some examples of how war motions work, what kind of general features they have, and I still won't use any examples. These examples can influence the debate too, they're not that important. All in all, when you want to think about IR debates, you want to think about a couple of things. What's the problem? First of all, what's the problem we're trying to solve here? And this can be used with examples if you know them. I'm trying to think of examples because they are useful. They are great. You don't have to do them. You can debate without them. I'm here to help you debate if you don't know them. If you do know them, use them. But first thing you need to do, there is a problem. If you don't know the problem, assume there is. But the problems are very often similar, right? There's human rights violations, the big one. I assume every country in the world has human rights violations. I know my country does, and my country is shown to be relatively wealthy and good, but the Netherlands is relatively okay. We have human rights violations. Amnesty International isn't very happy about some things we do with the migrants that we detain in prisons. They're not very happy about that, so there are human rights violations in the Netherlands. So presumably every country has them. There is, if the nation sounds relatively developing-y, so it isn't develops the developing, there's probably poverty. Probably. There's probably tensions. If you want to be daring, use the word ethnic tensions. There's probably tensions between groups. There are groups of countries that don't like each other. Again, this is probably true because I think almost every country in the world, maybe exception South Korea maybe, it has enormously large minority population. I think South Korea is one of the most homogeneous countries in the world. I think 98% or so of people living in South Korea are South Korean ethnically. But other countries, very heterogeneous, very different people. They probably don't like each other all of the time. There's probably tension. So you just say there's tension. And then you have the problem. The second question is our policy going to be effective? So you have a policy. The motion specifies a policy. Place sanctions on, invade in, ban country from, break ties with. Therefore, you need to prove that this policy is effective. The way in which you make a policy effective is talk about incentives. So countries have incentives, yeah. Turning off or turning on? Off. On. Let's see if this works. Okay. Incentives. Countries have incentives. Everything has incentives, right? I have the incentive to eat food because I'm hungry. I'm incentivized to eat food. So I have cravings. Countries also have needs and cravings. They want a good economy. They want to be stable. But also they have values, right? They want to promote their values, or they want to sustain their values. They want to sustain the value of Christianity. They want to sustain the value of independence, etc. They have values. The incentives are to keep your values and address your needs. That's the first thing. Go to respond to incentives. Policies change incentives because you now do a different action, and the purpose of the action is to change an incentive. For instance, if the incentive of a country is to be economically secure, sanctions make you less economically secure. Your incentive now becomes to remove the sanctions because that makes you economically secure. Change the incentive. However, countries have different incentives, right? They have an economic incentive. But they also have other incentives. For instance, let's talk about an example to make it a bit clearer. Russia. Russia invaded Crimea in South Ukraine and then East Ukraine. In response, the European Union placed sanctions on Russia. Economic sanctions. Of course, Russia has a incentive to be economically secure. But they also have other incentives. Does anyone hear a graphics lecture on Russia? Yeah? Can you remember what other incentives Russia possibly could have other than incentives to keep the country economically secure? Yeah. So Russia, certainly the Russian government, has incentives to keep the elite happy. That again could lead to you saying actually that's an economic incentive. We want to keep the elite happy. The elite makes large amounts of money from the economy. When the elite's unhappy because the economy is going down the drain, they're going to pressure. Russia has that for line. But they also have security incentives. And Russia might say we needed to intervene in these places because we want to keep Ukraine in check. Ukraine is important for our security. It can become an EU member that threatens us. It can become a NATO member that threatens us. So we want that security incentive. The other incentive they might have is they might say we want to incentivize NATO to say don't open the boundary. Again, a security incentive. So here it is, there's a security incentive, there's an economic incentive. We now need to make sure that on prop, you say the economic incentive is bigger than the security incentive, on op, the security incentive is bigger than the economic incentive. So that's, I think, important there. Which means you need to start making them more plausible. That's when you can use examples to make them more plausible, or you can use more explanation as to why in the abstract economic incentives are very important. People die, you can actually be secure if you have an economic, if you don't have an economy because you can't build an army. On the other hand, security incentives might be important. Like security is very important to keep your economy working in the first place. So security can take precedence over the economy. You can make those abstract trade-offs. Just keep on not using the examples, use the word security, economy. There's also, the third thing often happens like values, like citizens have certain values that they find important. In Russia's specific scenario, it is most likely that Russians believe that Ukraine was part of Russia as an important identity locator for the Russian national identity, because it was built around the Kiev and Rus Empire, which had its base in Kiev, because Orthodox Protestantism spread to Russia through Ukraine, through the area that's now Russia through Ukraine, because Crimea used to belong to Russia until a redistricting movement of the Soviet Union gave it to Ukraine, but also because the Crimea has historical significance as a place of aspiration for the Russian elite in Moscow, a place where they could have their summer homes, a place where Catherine the Great was there to make her ideas about an expansion of imperial Russia realities as important historical, cultural signifiers. Those are the actual things you know if you have to knowledge. Then you can build other incentives. Again, more knowledge is good. Not this workshop, but more knowledge is good. Do have knowledge. helps you. The third thing then is, after we've gotten through changing the policy, is it legit? Is it legitimate that we do this? Are we allowed to intervene in another country, for instance? Are we allowed to use economic incentives, which often have the tendency to make economies poorer? If economies are poorer, that means that people suffer. Is it okay to make people suffer for what states do? So ask yourself legitimacy questions. For instance, we can reasonably assume that a country that does large amounts of human rights violations isn't a very democratic country, i.e. citizens are unlikely to have influence over the state. Economic sanctions hurt citizens. That means that the citizens are hurt for something the state did. But the citizens are responsible for what the state did. They can't influence what the state did. They're innocent victims. Might therefore be immoral. Again, I've now again used an argument I think sounds relatively plausible. Used no example. I know nothing. Economics, the other issue. We'll talk about that later. The final thing is then impact. How big is it? Again, impacts are a little bit reliant on you knowing a little bit to make them sound very, very good. But the general impact is you've solved the problem. Right. You can start arguing about what's going to happen if you happen to know a little bit more. Then you can start saying, look, it's a regime change even. That needs to be made plausible. And then you can start arguing that's just why like this sanctions would remove human rights abuse, it could also change regime change. Which means that when you identify a problem and an impact, what you want to specifically look at what goal is you have. What goal does sanction have? What goal does war have? What goal does limiting ties? What do you want to achieve? Do you want to end you usually want to end problems, human rights violations. But you might also want to end the cause of the problem. The cause of the problem might be oppressive regime. Or whatever it is. So that means that the goal is not just to end the problem. The goal is to end the reason for the problem. So we've now built a very simple sanction case. Oppressive regime does human rights violations. Human rights violations are bad. We want to incentivize this country to stop human rights violations. How do we do that? We place sanctions on it. What do sanctions do? Sanctions, they hurt the economy. That means that the people who keep the autocratic government in power, the elite, they are hurt as well. The elite don't want to be hurt. So they're going to put pressure on the government to change their behavior, so the sanctions stop. Sanctions will now stop. The reason why they did use human rights violations was because they might be afraid of the people living there, because people are always afraid of people. That means that they had a security incentive. However, you can't really be secure if in an economic time crisis more people are annoyed, and then you get to feel more insecure. Therefore, economic incentives are more important. We think, in fact, this shows is that the government now actually is persuadable, because they've now been persuaded to use economic sanctions. That means that the legitimacy of the government has decreased. This means that the people can recognize that, and therefore they can pressure that government in order to change the behavior of the government. Therefore, we get regime change where this government becomes less autocratic. It's great. We stopped human rights violations, made the government better. So proud to propose. The only thing I now need to add is to say whatever country was in the motion is now government. That's the only thing we need to do. Fine PM speech, once again. Again, still haven't used any knowledge. Are there any questions thus far? Any questions? Any difficulties? We're going to try this now. I'm going to give you a motion, and I want you to try and come up with arguments for this motion. The 3 rows over, or 4 rows over here, so like half of this here in these rows, are going to come up with prop arguments. The other rows are going to come up with op arguments for this motion. The motion is, this House believes that the United States should fund the Peshmerga in their fight against ISIS. This House believes that the United States should fund the Peshmerga in their fight against ISIS. If you don't know who the Peshmerga are, if you don't know who ISIS is, if you don't know who the United States is, you're not allowed to ask. So trying to make arguments without knowledge.
Can you repeat the motion?
Yeah. This House believes the United States should fund the Peshmerga in their fight against ISIS. That's the United States should fund the Peshmerga in their fight against ISIS. You get 10 minutes. You are allowed to talk among people who have the same argument, who are proper arguments. Yeah. Peshmerga? I mean, it doesn't matter if you don't know it, then you don't know it. But it's P-E-S-H-M-E-R-G-A. Peshmerga. P-E-S-H-M-E-R-G-A. P-E-S-H-M-E-R-G-A. Okay, like I said, you are allowed to talk amongst people who have the same argument, like the same side as you, so the property can argue with each property. Obviously, can argue with the opposite. 10 minutes, I'm going to hear arguments. Best of luck. Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
the whole ideology of the democratic world. The U.S. has publications and aspirations to protect themselves. I want to wait, right? So yeah, there was no effect of
Five more minutes.
But like, basically, you're very I know it. Well, how would you say no? I don't know like how far they stand. This is really what